You guys, we did it. I'm like crying. Of course, 8 days, 7 nights on the West Coast Trail, full through hike, no contact with the outside world. Oh man, there's Gordon River. We're just waiting for the ferry to get across. Behind me, there's a bunch of people on the ladder right now. We have to come down. That's the last ladder of about 100 ladders that we did. And the girls are going to get pictures, so I'm gonna go join them, but through Jesus Christ, we did it. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. I'm so happy. Hey guys, and welcome back. There's this saying that if you ever meet a runner who has run a marathon, you won't have to ask them if they've run a marathon. They will tell you within like the first 5 minutes of your introduction. And for me, I found that if you're someone with chronic pain, or AKA fibromyalgia, and you've hiked a through hike as difficult as the West Coast Trail, you're probably gonna bring that up a lot too. We haven't talked about it so much. We've talked about it a little bit, but we haven't talked about it a lot. And when I first started dating my beloved man, I brought it up in pretty much every conversation because I wanted him to see that I was a bit of a bad. I don't think we're allowed to swear on YouTube. I had to eventually apologize for bringing it up. Now I bring it up sparingly, but he still hears my stories about hiking the West Coast Trail. We were talking about it the other day, and he said, Dina, this is a story that you have to share. So here's my story about how the West Coast Trail saved my life. Now, first of all, you have to ask the question, why did your life need saving? That gets a little bit tricky, and it's not something that I really want to go into detail on here. I share a lot more about it on my Instagram and on my Facebook. Something really bad happened just over 2 years ago. The very basic story is, you know, your typical story of my brother had an affair. My sister-in-law found out and she kicked him out. Now, I am 100% on my sister-in-law's side. I am estranged from my brother now. It's hard for people on the outside to know how drastically this really affected me. My sister-in-law gets it to an insane degree because she knows how close we used to be. And she's the only one that's actually fully understood how devastating this was for me because there were so many lies and manipulation and there was so much hurt. It was actually so bad for me as an empath that the week that I found out and she kicked him out, I ended up in the hospital twice thinking I was having a heart attack. My second time in, they actually asked me if anything emotional had happened, and I was literally diagnosed with a broken heart. That's actually a thing. I also have been diagnosed with PTSD as a result of that. So why did I need my life to be saved? I didn't understand how to live in a world where my brother would do something like that. That wasn't the guy that I knew. I very quickly started therapy and went on antidepressants, and I'm very happy to say that I'm okay now. And I think that I'm finally through the worst of it. I still am on a very low dosage of antidepressants, but we're in a pandemic, so come on. But I think it's really important to normalize mental health. That's another video. This all went down on December 3rd. I live in a completely different province from my family, but I still went home for Christmas. It was rough. Can I say hell? It was hell. Both of my parents didn't know how to cope with it. My mom completely shut down. My dad and I fought a lot. I didn't see my brother. It was bad. I remember coming home and I was in the Toronto airport and I was texting with my best friend and we were talking about if we were actually gonna do this crazy hike that we had talked about before all of this went down or not. We had to decide that night because we had to get permits the next day and the permits always sold out. Neither her nor I had ever done a through hike before. Through hike meaning you're carrying all of your gear and it's multiple days. But I remember crying in the Toronto airport as I was waiting for my bag and just knowing how desperately I needed something to look forward to and something to plan for and something literally to stay alive for. And hiking the West Coast Trail was it. Now, if you don't know, the West Coast Trail is I think they say it's like 78 kilometers, but it's actually around 100 for people who have actually measured it out with their Garmins and whatnot. It's actually around 100 kilometers. We did it in 8 days. A lot of people will do it in shorter amounts, 6 or 7, but I am slow. And it is on the west coast of Vancouver Island here in Canada. And it is remote. You fly into Victoria, you take about a 3-hour long bus ride to get there. It's not a loop. You either hike it north to south or south to north, the south part being the most difficult. We decided to go north to south and we're very glad we went that way because we ended up making some lifelong friends. But when we do it again, we'll go south to north, let me tell you. We flew into Victoria and within a day we were on that bus and we were camping at Pachina Campground, ready to go the next day to hike the West Coast Trail. Did we make a lot of packing mistakes? Yeah, we did. We packed a tent that was way too big and some other things. Our backpacks were ridiculously heavy. I remember even just walking from the bus to our campsite with my backpack on and going, I'm not gonna make it. Like, barely able to move. My backpack was 50 pounds. Now, a lot of people are gonna feel like that's way too heavy. Yes, it was way too heavy. I overpacked for sure. I will not do that again, let me tell you. The West Coast Trail initially came to fruition because that part of the world actually has this coral rock shelf on the Pacific Ocean, and a lot of, I'm not describing this well, you can look it up, a lot of ships actually got wrecked along this reef that, you know, you can't see when the tide's in. And it initially kind of came into fruition because there are 3 native tribes that live on that land, and they had a trail that went back and forth, but also shipwreck survivors would come up and they would come along this trail, and eventually people started hiking it. Now it is in Pacific Rim National Park. All 3 of the tribes, they actually help take care of the trail now, which is really incredible. You are in the thick of it. If you are injured, you have to wait up to 24 hours to get rescued. There are bears, wolves, coyotes. We only saw 1 bear. We didn't see the other 2, but we saw their paw prints like around our tent in the morning and stuff like that. We also saw sea lions and snakes, and bald eagles followed us along the way. And I mean, it was just the most magical thing. One of the biggest things about the West Coast Trail is that it has over 70 giant ladders. Now, not every ladder is giant, but let me tell you, when you are a plus-sized hiker with a 50-pound backpack on, those get difficult. There are also a ton of mud pits because the West Coast Trail is in a rainforest, so it's gonna rain. She is going to rain. Thankfully, we only had rain on 1 day, but it was our most difficult day. On top of my fibromyalgia, I was going in with some pretty intense Achilles issues from another hike that I had done 2 years prior. I had been working on rehabilitating them, but they were still pretty rough. So I made the very dumb mistake of overcompensating for those. And within a day or 2, I had massive blisters on my feet. Like a fool, I popped them. I believe it was our 3rd day, maybe it was our 2nd day. I get the days very mixed up in my mind. We came up to Susiat Falls, beautiful, and I took a shower in these falls and I ended up getting sand all in my blisters. And that's not good because they can get infected. We ran into a nurse and a firefighter who had a similar starting itinerary as us, and they had to do surgery on my feet. I don't drink, but I did take a couple of massive swigs of whiskey that my friend Shannon gave me, who we had met on the trail. I'll post some pictures here. It's pretty funny. My friend Patricia, that you now hear me talk about because we hike all the time together, she was holding my leg to make sure that I wasn't gonna hit anyone. Some amazing friends who we call mom and dad were kind of standing behind me, holding me. Another guy, Manuel, was also, I think he was holding a flashlight, and they had this giant knife and they were scraping that sand out of these raw blisters, and then they took a syringe full of boiling hot water and had to shove it into all of my blisters, and let me tell you, it was very painful. I was microdosing painkillers for the rest of the trip. Some days I could barely stand. The very first thing I would do when I got up was put fresh bandages on my blisters, and then I would take multiple painkillers, put on my boots, and just kind of get used to them. It took us about an hour to break down camp every day and have breakfast and get going. It was rough. It was really rough, but at the same time, it was absolutely amazing. The West Coast Trail is really incredible because you do a lot of beach walking, but you also then go up into the forest. It's technically tricky because you have to watch the tide. You have to make sure that you're hiking at the right time because when the tide comes in, it'll actually cut off some of your route, so you have to wait it out. You have to forge a bunch of streams and rivers, and there is actually a couple of points where you have to full on get onto cable cars, and you have to get onto these cable cars and somehow hold them with your bags in there and your friend and then get to the other side. Thankfully, my friend Michelle was with me. Michelle was a complete, and is a complete godsend. She went in fully knowing that she was gonna have to take care of me, and boy did she take care of me. 4 or 5 days in, the pain in my feet was so bad that by the time we got to the camp, I would just sit on a log and involuntarily start crying. And she would put up the tent on her own. She would put my food in the bear bin, basically take care of me. We got to know 2 other groups really well, Patricia and Shannon, and then also this other group of 4. Awesome group from Red Deer, and they all took care of me. They all chipped in. They gave me really intense painkillers. They gave me fresh water. They would wash my dishes. Like, they just would help, and it was really incredible. It was really incredible. They are family. They're my West Coast family, and they will be super special to me and important to me for the rest of my life. They got me through something that I didn't think that I would get through. There's this one place called the Crab Shack, and boy do I have stories about Hippie Doug, but that's for another time and place. Message me privately and we'll talk about Hippie Doug. He's amazing. I love him. It's run by a native family, and they literally pull crab out of the ocean right there, break it apart, and cook it for you. It's the one place on the trail where you can get a cooked meal, which is amazing. We looked forward to that those first 2 days like crazy. It was incredibly painful for the body. When we finished, I had so many blisters and sores on my feet that I couldn't put on shoes. I had to buy flip-flops in order to get around for the next week. And I actually had broken a bone in my foot, and I wasn't aware of it until a week after, when my blisters healed, because that pain was so extreme that I didn't feel that extra pain. So that's fun. On the 7th day, it rained. That was the hardest physical day of my life. It's up there emotionally too. But we had decided to hike with Patricia and Shannon, which was wonderful. It was pouring rain. We got through mud pits like crazy. We were going across just like big logs that were down that we had to cross kind of ravines on, and they were of course slippery. There were a couple of falls. I fell really hard a couple of times and had a minor panic attack for about 5 minutes. And then I eventually just got up and kept going, because you have to. Your whole objective when you're doing a through hike is get up, feed myself, keep myself alive, and keep moving forward. That's it. There's something really beautiful about that actually. And I wish that everyone could experience that, because it's incredible. There's just something so simplistic about it, you know? We had no internet access out there. We couldn't call anyone. We couldn't check our email. We just enjoyed each other and scenery. We camped every night on the beach. We saw whales. It was incredible. The most incredible experience of my life. That 7th day, we got to camp and we could actually see land on the other side, and we knew that we were going to be finished the next day. But my body went into shock like crazy. We got the tent up, and by we I mean I'm pretty sure Michelle got the tent up on her own. I may have helped a little bit. I was standing there and my feet just felt like they were shattering. They just felt like they were just coming apart, and I was like, wow, I need to lay down. I got into my sleeping bag and I just tried to sleep it off, but I was shaking like crazy. I drank some electrolytes, but nothing was really helping. Eventually it passed, but it was scary. And yet that night was one of the nights that I remember the best. Michelle and I were just laying out on a tarp, eating our food, laughing hysterically, just enjoying and just talking about what we had gone through, and it was really beautiful. And when my therapist asks me to return to the time and the place where I feel the safest, that's the image that pops up into my head. Is laying on that tarp with Michelle, eating our dinner, knowing that tomorrow we were going to be off the trail, but also mourning that fact, because it felt like we were now living a different life. It was so healing for me. Before we went on that trail, I was so depressed. I was questioning everything in my life. I hadn't felt joy in months, and I hadn't been able to laugh in months. And on that trail with Michelle and Patricia and Shannon, who we had met on the trail, which is crazy because now Patricia's one of my closest friends, I laughed again. And I don't mean just like a little chuckle, I mean like a gut-wrenching, tears streaming down your face laughter. The next day when we came off that trail, I mean, of course I sobbed at the end of it. I still can't believe that we did it. I can't believe I want to do it again. But the people who know me and who saw me after, they all said, you're glowing. Something shifted in you. And it had. I saw God again. Being out in creation, seeing the bald eagles every night, seeing the whales, even seeing the bear, it healed me. Not completely, but you know, I mean, it started my healing process from an emotional and mental standpoint. It kickstarted it, I guess I could say. And I truly believe that that's what helped me stay alive, was looking forward to that journey and then actually doing it and completing it and following through. It was an emotional and spiritual time for me, and it was so healing. It helped me know that I was going to be okay. I knew that if I could get through that, if I could get through day 7 on that trail, I was going to be okay. And earlier that February, I had gotten my first tattoo, which was this one here. It's Philippians 4:13. Now, whether you're a Christian or not, that's fine, but I'm just going to share this because it is part of my journey. Philippians 4:13, I actually got it on Family Day. That was on purpose. It is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. As we were going up and down these massive ladders and hiking up cliffs and forging rivers, Michelle would, she would sing Disney songs at me, and she would also sing, I like big butts, so thanks for that. But she would also yell at me, you can do hard things. And I would be kind of like going up this ladder with this 50-pound backpack on, and I kept saying to myself under my breath, I can do hard things. I can do hard things. even staying alive, even moving forward with fibromyalgia, even though I don't know what my future looks like. Even running a 5K, even hiking another through hike this summer, which I'm really excited about. We've just started planning. With Patricia, actually, which is crazy. It's amazing. I can do hard things. And you know what? So can you. That's my story. I am open to any questions you might have about it. I'd love to hear if you have a similar story. That's how the West Coast Trail kept me alive. And the funny thing is that a lot of people don't understand why I need to do stuff like this. I told my dad yesterday that I was going to do another through hike, and it was probably going to be 8 to 9 days this summer. And he was like, why would you put yourself through that again? And I just kind of laughed, because he doesn't get it. He doesn't have to, because I do. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.